Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Arabi.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios on a beautiful day in New Orleans. Again, early September, no tropical weather anywhere, so that's always a good thing. This time last year, we were all scattered all over the map, and of course now, looking at the looking at the opener for the Saints in Atlanta, coming off again openers for both Tulane and LSU. And oh, by the way, the Pelicans are not that far away from again going into the training camp preseason before you know it. October, again, remember, is when the season starts, October the 19th. So we'll be right into that as well. We got a great show for you planned tonight. Juan Kincaid, sports director at Fox 8 Sports, is our guest, and of course, one of my favorite guys in the business. Juan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Always good to have you. And you guys are just killing it over at Fox 8 right now. You got shows pretty much every single night now for folks. Let everybody know a little bit about all the programming you guys have.
Well, we're about to add a new show called The Final Bet on Thursday nights at 10:35. Every show that we do in the evening outside of the Final Play on Sunday nights is at 10:35. So we've got additional shows, mostly Saints-related shows happening Monday through Friday, Sunday through Friday, every week. So it's a busy time, but you know, it's what we signed up for, right?
Yeah. So again, from again the Final Play right into
Sunday,
into again all the way to Friday Night Football, right? You got the Friday
Fox 8 Football Friday on Friday night. Yeah. So we go Final Play, game plan with Deuce McAllister and Sean on Monday. Fox 8 Overtime with all the Fox 8 Sports crew on Tuesday. Game plan, me and Sean was in on Wednesday. Thursday, the Final Bet with the new shows with me and Garland Gillen.
Debuting tonight
for the first time. So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun because this is the first year really where Louisiana can now do sports betting. So we expect that show to take off. High school football, Fox 8 Football Friday on Friday. So and that's always a popular show, one of our more popular shows.
And pretty much again a game on Saturday night, right?
There'll be a game on Fox 8 on Saturdays most times. A lot of times in the Pac-10 and whatever else. I mean, it's busy season, and we haven't even started the NFL season, which is upon us now.
Yeah, and of course the home of really the Saints, with again Fox 8 carrying
pretty much
pretty much all the Saints games, and also now the Monday night games as well, right?
Carrying some Monday night games as well. So you get your fill of football on Fox 8. And of course, Fox 8 Live Tailgate gets you ready for the game on every Sunday morning, pretty much whether they're home or away. We're either on the road with them live, and I'm in studio, or Sean and I are live at the Superdome with an hour-long pregame show leading up to Fox's national show. show. So it's busy, but it's fun.
Oh yeah, it's fun, of course.
Yeah.
What we signed up for, right?
Absolutely.
And of course, look, been a long time before this guy gets a vacation. That's for sure.
I'm not even asking for one. Yeah.
There you go. Let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about the Saints. Obviously, starting off against Atlanta. The Dennis Allen era starts. You were at camp. You watched this this team during camp. You've seen now again the preseason. It is a shift now from a Sean Payton era now to the Dennis Allen era. Just on the surface, the differences between the coaches, the vibe you've gotten out of training camp.
I think it's one that's of belief that this is a football team that's going to be very good.
Right.
I mean, I think if you look at this, the starting 22, there is talent all over the roster. And I think there's depth all over the roster. I think there's a belief that this football team can go a long way this year. I've heard a lot of people predict that they will win the NFC South. I am in that number.
Me too.
I was asked by our colleague Jeff Duncan about what I thought the record would be, and normally I'm on the fence. I'm kind of cautious normally approaching this. I usually say 9-8 or 10-7 because they have a difficult schedule. I think they're 12-5 this year because I think they're a football team that, one, they're deep, they're talented on offense, and it all begins with Jameis Winston. If he has a good year, this Saints offense, this Saints team has a great year.
Yeah, that's 12 wins. I've actually seen a couple national writers talk about 12 wins. I get 10 as the basement for these guys. It'll be interesting to see if they could get to 12 wins. But I think that again, a lot of people are sleeping on the Saints, especially with the division. I think you look at Tampa right now with the issue with their offensive line. They've had a changeover. It's not the same team as we saw last year. Yes, they've added Julio Jones, etc. But
it's an older Julio Jones,
exactly,
too. Yeah.
And an often injured Julio Jones
exactly.
who can't stay on the field. But I think the Saints match up with them, and I think the Saints, when it's all said and done, could be a better team than them this year. First of all, we don't know what Tom Brady's going to be. He's 45 years old. When does he go off the cliff? But we do know that he needs protection, and the Saints have figured out how to pressure him. And that's the first key to beating a Tampa Bay team.
I would agree. And I think that, Tom Brady coming into training camp late, I'm not so stressed about that because you don't forget how to play football. Sure. And a guy that's won as much as he hasn't forgotten how to be a winner. I think the pieces around him offensively are still very good, but their big question mark is their offensive line. They've had so many injuries there, guys that have been lost for the season. If you can't protect your quarterback, you can't win football games as consistently as you want to. So that's the big problem with them. But I've always been a believer that in Tom Brady, you have to trust the process with him, and I don't pick against him until he's retired.
Yes.
But I do think as a team, the Saints are a better football team. They're a more put-together football team. They're a deeper football team. And offensive talent-wise, I think the Saints are as good offensively as anybody in the NFL. And the receiving core should be fantastic this year. Again, if Jameis can be smart with the football, not turn it over, and not do things out of what he's comfortable doing, trust the guys around him, trust the ball, trust the people he's handing the ball off to, trust the guys he's throwing the ball to. Chris Olave could have a huge year because the other two guys, Jarvis and Michael Thomas, are there and will command most of the attention.
Sure.
I just think this Saints team is built to have a ton of success this year. Get to the playoffs and see where you go from there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, the upgrade at the wide receiver position was needed and necessary, and I thought they went in the right direction there. Obviously, Olave is a player that's got some speed, and he is going to get lost in the mix here because of that. Also, again, I think the tight end position, moving Taysom back to the jack of all trades. I'm expecting a big year out of Troutman. I like Juan Johnson as again that hybrid, and look, Vanette is your blocking tight end there. So I think again a lot of attention going to be played to a Kamara, a Thomas, a Landry, an Olave. Those guys are going to be able to have a chance to get open. The big key for the Saints is offensive line. Number one, staying healthy, and then, of course, being able to protect Jameis Winston.
Well, you're looking at the left tackle position when you talk about the offensive line, because that's where the concern and the questions are. Trevor Penning, James Hurst were two guys who were going at it in practice. That was a neck-and-neck competition until Penning has a foot injury, so now he's out, and they're saying maybe as early as November coming back, so you get that piece back in the mix. But then you're also hoping that James Hurst, who Jameis Winston raved about yesterday, talked about he's a professional, he's been down this road before, he can play multiple positions. if he can lock down that left side, there's no reason why this offensive line isn't a strong point for this football team.
Ruiz has got to step up. Again, he's struggled some.
He's had a better camp. That's the thing about this year.
Right.
A lot of his offensive lineman teammates, and even Jameis said a few weeks back that you can see a difference in him from last year to now.
Right.
And you want to see that growth with all the offensive linemen. And he's the one guy on the offensive line that we needed to see the most growth from, because he was kind of the weak link of that unit last year. But from what we're hearing and what we've seen in practice, he has stepped up tremendously and will no longer be that piece where you're just like, oh man, he's just not quite where everyone else is.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he's going to have Ramczyk next to him, and that helps.
It does.
Last year he did. He had to switch to center, came back. Ramczyk was hurt, kind of exposed him a bit.
Yeah.
You got Martin, you got Throckmorton, and also again Young will be your backups there. And look, again, based on what we've seen over the last few years, Throckmorton is going to be a guy that can play either guard position for you. We'll see how that plays out. Landon Young played pretty well early last year before he got injured. Of course, he played that one game with a broken foot. How did he look in camp? Does he look like he's ready if something was to happen to be able to step in at one of the tackle positions?
Well, I think the question right now is he's on injured report yesterday as being out of practice. So you want to keep an eye on that and see how much he progresses over the next couple of days leading into the game on Sunday. He's a young player who's going to develop, and he's a talented young player. But I don't think you're hoping you don't have to get to the point where you have to rely on him being along that offensive line, especially at the left tackle position.
As always, I bury the lead. The guy that has to go is going to be Kamara. Kamara's a guy that's going to be the engine of this offense. You love the fact that you got a healthy Mark Ingram and his physicality. And, you like, that 1-2 punch back together at the running back position.
I mean, gosh.
Come on. And
Alvin, if Alvin stays healthy.
Right.
And it looks like he's going to avoid having to miss any time this year because of the incident that happened in Vegas back at the beginning of the year. If he stays healthy, man, what this offense can do.
Who do you cover?
Exactly. Not only who do you cover, but who do you double?
Right.
You can't double anybody.
No, you can't.
Because
that's what I'm saying.
In last year, if Mike Thomas had been there, they could have bracketed him and made it someone else beat you. You don't have that luxury this year because you know that that the guys around him can beat you one-on-one. And I think that's why I said Chris Olave, I think he's going to have a huge year because most times he's going to be bracketed one-on-one against the third best cornerback or probably a nickel guy. That's an advantage to the wide receiver. I just think that there are too many, it's a pick your poison situation beginning with the Falcons.
I agree.
Who are you going to pick your poison against? Because there's going to be other guys that are going to be open. I will say this, I know you are excited about the tight end position. I still have questions about tight end position.
I just think Trout was going to come on.
I think he will have a better year, another year in the offense. But I think what they have to avoid, and look, the coaches have forgotten more football than you and I will ever know. You can't get in the position to where if Nick Vanette's on the field, you know the team's going to be running the ball.
Right, of course.
The guy Troutman, Taysom Hill, Juan Johnson, they have to be able to run block as well, so that way you keep teams off balance and not saying, well, if this guy's on, we know they're going to do this or they're not going to do this. And so I think how those other guys respond to playing tight end as a blocking tight end is going to be very important.
You know what's interesting is, and I didn't really buy it at first, but again, I'm buying it now. I've mentioned the lack of OTAs over the last the previous 2 years. One with COVID, and then one again, Peyton just saying, look, come in shape and ready to go. One of the things that Mickey Loomis talked about in one of his opening press conferences was guys like Troutman and Ruiz who came in that draft where they didn't get the offseason opportunity to be able to really work on their game, work on the playbook, etc. And they were expecting a big year out of both this year because their progress was kind of stymied a bit. I'll be interested to see if that's going to happen. Both those guys are going to be in the spotlight here because of what they're doing at their particular position.
I would agree. Look, the more time you can have on the field in a normal setting of practice, the better it's going to be. But I'm also of the belief that, and I talked to Sean Vazan about this, we talk about this every year. We get so high or so low on what we've seen in training camp from individual players. It's fool's gold because you have to remember they're going against their teammates. Their defense is going against an offense they see every day, and they know the play calls. So they should be ahead of the defense. If an offensive player makes a play on a defensive guy, it's a great play because they know what's coming, and you got to still win the battle. And so, while we all get excited about what we see in preseason training camp and everything, take it with a grain of salt because once they go up against a team doesn't know you and you don't know their tendencies, let's see how you do then. But I just think the Saints football, I think they're good. I think they're going to be really, really good. And I think that a lot of times they play this year, the defensive team is going to be overwhelmed.
Special teams now. going back a few years where Peyton really put an emphasis on, again, bringing in guys that play the position, have really kind of flourished under Rizzi, the coach there. You get Lutz back. You got Hardy now returning kicks and punts for you, so you're solid there. And then, look, defensively, all three levels, I think they're really good. If you got a question mark, maybe you got a question mark the depth at linebacker, but the defensive line is going to carry this team.
Defensive line is where the strength of this football team is. I mean, they're too deep at almost every position. Yes. I want to see how Marcus Davenport and Peyton Turner play.
Right.
I want to see them play more than one game in a row. I want to see them, get some action.
Right.
Not just play one game and all of a sudden next week you're out, which has been the problem with obviously Marcus Davenport. I've always believed for the last couple of years that when he's been on the field and healthy, Davenport has looked like your most dangerous defensive lineman.
Absolutely.
And he takes so much pressure off of Cam Jordan on the other side. How many more years can we rely on Cam to get double-digit sacks? With Matt Ryan out of the NFC South now, he's not going to get 4. We know that.
Right.
But I think all across the defensive line, this team is really strong. For me, the one question mark I have is obviously was 2 really. Linebacker next to DeMario Davis. Who's going to play that position? Pete Warner has been injured the entire training camp, dealing with a groin injury, hurt himself, came back, re-injured it again. How strong is he to come in for Sunday's game if he's going to play at all? And at the safety position with Marcus May, it feels like that something's eventually going to come down with this last incident a couple weeks ago, the road rage incident. It's his second type car-related incident since in 2 years. So there's a pattern there, and the NFL, I feel like, is going to take a look this time and say, you know what, we got to discipline this time. So, but having said that, then you're losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Right.
That area has taken a hit.
It has.
And it's like we said yesterday on the show, they wouldn't have made the move with C.J. Gardner-Johnson if they didn't have the proper coverage in the back. I feel like they're covered in the back, but you can't replicate what C.J. Gardner-Johnson brought you. That dog.
Right.
He had that dog that fight him. You either have that or you don't. Nobody else in the Saints secondary has that. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that.
It really, the one criticism, one of the criticisms I have about the offseason, one going after Deshaun Watson, which again I thought would have upset this locker room.
I didn't have a problem with it though, because either you want to win. Listen,
go ahead.
The NFL is about winning,
right?
And there are no angels in the locker room. All these guys have something in their history where they're not proud of because they're human. And so when you're trying, I'm not saying I wanted Deshaun Watson on the team, but I understand why you went after him, but I also understand how you put a limitation on what you would give up for him.
Right.
That's where I think the Saints were different than other teams. They weren't willing to salvage the farm just to get one player, because then you got to rebuild a number of other spots. I like how they went about it, but they recognize, you know what, we'll ride with Jameis here. We got a lot more in the tank.
I feel like a little bit of hypocrisy, okay, when again, you're worried about your locker room with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but you weren't worried about the locker room with again, all the baggage that Deshaun Watson was going to bring.
Well, it's interesting because it seemed like Gail Benson didn't have a problem with Deshaun Watson.
Right, which is
and the thing is, if she signs off on it, how could you not make the move to go bring him in?
Remember, she went twice.
Yeah.
She took plane, not
That's
once,
what I'm saying.
Twice.
That's what I'm saying. So if she's signing off, then you have to at least make an effort to get him in here.
Because he could be the one. I mean, you look at it again. Circus leading up to the season. Circus right now in Cleveland. Their fan base is split. Okay, on again.
Yeah, but you know what, Eric? You know what will bring that fan base back?
Oh, no,
when they
really?
win football games.
Oh, as soon as he throws a touchdown, it's over.
Exactly. Football
no doubt.
And the same thing here. We'll sit and complain about, I cannot believe they signed this guy. But if he's getting this, winning football games with this team, people will look to the left on something he did on the right. And say, you know what, I'll give him a pass this time. That's just the way fans are. And it's
the way sports is. Again, if you can do the job, people will look past again the flaws in your character, even if those are again criminal flaws in some cases.
Absolutely.
The other thing is again not keeping the energy of this defense, not re-signing Quan Alexander again, and then of course trading C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They're taking a chance here. Well, again, we know DeMario Davis is the engine that really drives this team, but those guys again hyped up that defense. Like nobody else did.
Again, Quan's a good example. Thank you for saying that, because there's guys that have that dog in them, that fight, that attitude, that nastiness, and no one else in the Saints defense has that. Hasn't shown that.
You need that,
and you need that. Yeah, you need that.
Especially on defense.
I mean, you're forever going to remember C.J. Gardner-Johnson getting in Tom Brady's face and just like mean-mugging him. You're forever going to remember that. Because that's C.J. That's who he is.
Yes.
That's who he is. He's the greatest instigator this team has had in many, many years. There are guys swinging at him in the secondary, and he's just standing there taking it because he knows he's in their head. who's going to take that place?
Well, plus good run support and a pretty good blitzer. Look, I agree with some of the critics that say he wasn't the best in pass coverage, depending on, especially if you had the smaller, quicker receiver that was going in the slot. But the intangibles that he brought,
he made up in so many other ways.
Oh, he really did.
Yeah.
And they're going to miss him. There's no other way about it. They're going to miss him.
And the fact that they got a late round picks.
Right.
Shows you this was much more than about just,
This was, we know you're not going to sign, and we think you're going to be a problem in the locker room.
And him having to sit in at practice, I mean, he didn't help his cause either. I mean, the Saints didn't want to pay him what he wanted. Maybe he's worth it, I don't know, maybe he's not, but they didn't want to pay what he's worth. And then you have the way he goes about in practice, having a sit in and not participating in things but being out there. I understand. They have the locker room built a certain way. And
see, I look at it another way, Juan. I look at it as this locker room is strong enough to police itself. And
but you think
there's no way in the world that I believe that Gardner Johnson, when the regular season started, would have continued to be a malcontent, or would have been sitting in, as you mentioned, with the reps.
Practicing, yeah.
I don't get it. Okay, I don't think that would have happened. I think he realized, first of all, he's showcasing himself for the other 31 teams. If the Saints are not going to re-sign him, he's going to have a great year and say, either you're going to have to re-sign me, or 31 other teams are going to want me.
Well,
but it's water on the bridge now.
Yeah, it is.
They got to go with again the team that they have.
Yeah.
With that said, the only thing outside of the fact that you're losing the juice is you've weakened the secondary some. You worry about now if you have an injury, if you have a suspension.
Yeah.
Now, the Marcus made this situation. The NFL in the past has waited until the court cases are completed. We don't know where they are in Fort Lauderdale in terms of the DUI. We know, again, here in New Orleans, this is probably going to move pretty slowly in Jefferson Parish in terms of that investigation. So, again, we'll see if that works out. But you get a couple more injuries in that secondary, you got an issue.
Yeah, you do. But again, it's the deepest part of your football team. On
Adebo right now may not play.
Adebo's got an injury as well. So we'll see. And he's dealing with an ankle injury. So we'll see where things go as far as the Falcons game. You should be able to go into that Falcons game with what you have as a roster and still win that football game because you can outscore that football team. But, injuries are always going to be a concern. But again, if it's in that secondary, that is the deepest part of your football team.
I agree. I do think Nickel's going to be by committee, though. I think you'll see.
I think you've got a lot of options there,
you see Roby
including
there,
Matthew.
PJ. I think you'll see Tyrann Matthew. Maybe May. I think it'll be by committee on how they'll play. They'll play that particular position. I do want to go back to Jameis Winston for a moment. This is a big year for him, okay? Not just contract, again, putting himself back on track. The one thing that, again, he's struggling in is the intermediate routes. It's something he's really got to step up and do this year, especially with the type of receivers he has. When you talk about a guy like Thomas and a guy like Jarvis Landry, that's where they make their money in intermediate routes. And, of course, being able to throw the ball in tight windows. I do not blame him last year for not throwing in the tight windows with that receiving core. Okay, this is a different animal, though, this year, when you talk about the ability to get those those guys who, again, will use their body, have the strength to be able to take in those intermediate routes. Yeah, well, I will say this. So Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, guys like that are going to benefit from the three guys that are in front of them. Absolutely. And so, again, the receiving core is so talented that no guy can get double teamed. And so Marquez is going to be going one-on-one. And, Jameis has the ability to throw the ball anywhere on the field. He can go long, Olave, Hardy going long, even Callaway going long. Right. He can do intermediate, and a lot of his throws are going to be intermediate now with Michael Thomas back, those possession guys. Jarvis Landry, a fantastic possession receiver. Yes. So I think all three levels of the field he's going to be able to take advantage of. And we know, again, how great of a deep thrower he is. Yeah. And I think that will be back in the. We'll see a lot of. See, what I'm wondering about Carmichael is now he's not in the shadow of Peyton anymore. What are we going to see? Yeah. Is it going to be shock and awe again? Because they have that type of talent now, and they have that type of arm strength now and arm talent to be able to go and be a team that can be quick strike like they were when Peyton first got here with Breeze. Yeah. Or is this going to be again a dink and dunk, intermediate? Slowly get the ball down the field. Kamara, obviously again, and the big guns at wide receiver. What do you think it's going to look like? I think you've got to let Jameis go. You got to let him go. You cannot put restrictions on a guy that's been in this offense now, almost 3 years now. Mm-hmm. So he understands the offense. There's nothing new that he's doing in this offense now. Let him play. He's going to have some turnovers. Yeah. Every quarterback does. The more risk you take, the more risk reward. But I think you got to let him go. Let him fill out the offense here. Open the playbook to him. I don't think that Pete Carmichael is going to hold back. Right. I think there are going to be some similarities and.
the play calling, because a lot of times Pete made the play calls.
Right.
Pete was not making all the play calls all the time, but I think Pete's going to put his own stamp on the game. I think he's going to be aggressive when he wants to be aggressive, because he has a quarterback that he can be aggressive with. Last 3 or 4 years, you couldn't be as aggressive with Drew Brees because he just didn't have the arm strength. Everything was underneath, which is fine. Brees was 80% thrower, so that's fine. But now you have a quarterback that can hit every level with accuracy. And so I think you take the reins off and let him go.
Big thing for him is, again, mechanics. Again, when his feet are set, he is, again, a phenomenal thrower. When he's not, again, that's where, again, he has the issues where he's off target. You know, there's a difference between a good Jameis and bad Jameis, what we've seen in the past. All right, the Atlanta Falcons this week. I went and looked at the roster, and I told us to Sean.
Recognize anybody besides Deion Jones?
No, seriously, think about it.
I'm serious.
Okay, there's no Matt Ryan, so you got Mariota, Matthews, again, the big lineman. Okay, Pitts, Patterson. Okay, so again, you know those guys. Defense, you mentioned Jones, Jarrett, Terrell. I know the kicker and the punter, Koo, because again of what he's done. Pinion. If you look at that roster, there's been such a turnover. It's going to be you're either going to need a roster scorecard to keep up with, again, what's going on there.
Which to me makes what makes them even more dangerous, because there's so much unknown with Atlanta. You know they're going to do a lot of run and shoot. You know that you got a quarterback now in Mariota who can get out of the pocket. You got to keep him in between the tackles, make him beat you with his arm. That's the goal. And as Dennis Allen said, make them one-dimensional. That's always the goal every week, no matter who the quarterback is. Take away one thing that they want to do, make them have to go to one situation throwing the ball. I think if you make Mariota a passer, then you win this game with no problem. It's when he's able to do everything in his bag, and their offense is able to do everything they want to do, where they become a dangerous football team. But I agree. Outside of Pitts and Patterson, what do you have there?
You really don't have a lot.
You really don't have a lot.
You got Drake London, who's the rookie coming out of USC, who again is expected to be their top wide receiver. I think, again, what they did was they went in and they digested the Philly film from the last few years. And they're going to try to emulate, again, what Jalen Hurts did at Philly in terms of, again, running and using the quarterback that way. Because the Saints have had a problem in dealing with quarterbacks that run the RPO.
I agree. But I don't think Mariota is as an effective RPO runner as Jalen Hurts is. Jalen Hurts can get you 25 yards like that, no big deal. I don't think Mariota's looking to do that. He's looking to make the defense commit and then hit the throw. But I will agree, and I said this yesterday on the show, that the Saints traditionally have struggled with teams that run the RPO. Most of the times it seems like it's been Philadelphia that's been the one killing them every year. But I think in Mariota, I think he wants to rely more on the guys to throw the ball to and get other guys involved. But to me, there's just too many things playing in the Saints' favor in this game. They have a defense that I believe that front four is where it comes down to. If they can keep Mariota in the pocket, keep him contained, and get pressure, then it's not a hard thing for the Saints.
All right, you've already said you think they'll win 12 games. How far can this team go?
You know, I think I don't know. 12 games gets you winning the division. And it gets you, what, a first-round bye?
Possibly.
Maybe. Depending on how the playoff structure is now, So if you have the best record in the NFC. I think they can get to at least the second round. But, you know, once you get past the first round, it's wide open. You know, it all depends on the matchup, depends on where you're playing the game. And I don't know. I mean, I just think they have the potential to go a long way this year, as long as they stay healthy. But that's everybody.
That's everybody. But I agree with you. If they're healthy, as long as they don't look, you're going to have injuries. The problem with the Saints is they've been decimated at certain positions over the last few years, where, again, they got to the point where they were bringing guys off the street to play offensive line, or, again, other positions. If they can, just kind of spread out the injuries and not have one particular position group have to take it on, I think they got a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I really do. I think this could be a team that could be in the NFC Championship, because I don't think the NFC is that strong. Now, winning against an AFC team, that might be very difficult. But again, I think this team has the potential. If Jameis Winston plays well, defense is as advertised, there's no doubt they have the weapons to do it. I think they got the potential to get to be in the NFC Championship.
I agree, but I think the NFC is strong. I think the NFC, when you look at the NFC West, I think it's stacked outside of Seattle.
They're going to beat each other
It's a really good division, and I think two, maybe three of those teams will get into the playoffs. Depends on who you play. I think
it's matchups.
Yeah, it's matchups. I mean, I think the Rams going to be great again. I think the Cardinals will have a bounce back.
Green Bay.
I think Green Bay is going to be good. They're going to be good enough, and the division is not very good. Minnesota's going to be average. They'll probably be close to the playoffs.
Is it Dallas in the East?
I think it's Dallas in the East of a division that's just not very good. Dallas or Philly. So, but I think there's a top tier group and there's a bottom tier in terms of playoff teams. And so where do the Saints fit in there? We believe they fit in that upper echelon, but they could end up being in that lower echelon to where they're just getting in at 11-6. And
if Jameis is not playing well and they're hit by injuries, I mean, it could be
If Jameis is not playing well and they're healthy, is Andy Dalton good enough to get you to the playoffs?
Yes.
We'll see.
Yes, again, he's good enough to win some games. Now, again, I don't know.
It depends on when the injuries happen.
Right.
That,
to me, that was
who they're to.
That was a really great move by this organization,
dude,
to get him, especially after what we saw last year.
After what we saw last year, oh my gosh.
And look, they may have given up a third. They may ultimately lose a third-round compensatory pick because of that. But again, I think it was a move you had to make.
4 quarterbacks last year.
Yeah, come on.
And you didn't get much out of any of them.
No.
I mean, I think it's a smart move.
Yeah.
You get a guy that's proven, that's won some games, won a number of games, been a starter in this league for many, many years.
Yes.
Is not wowed by the moment.
No.
Has been in all the moments. And so I think it's a great move by the Saints. And I think it's them saying, you know what, we cannot go through what we went through last year. No, we got a quarterback that's coming back off an ACL tear. Got a left tackle that we don't know if he can hold up.
Yep.
So I think it's the right move.
And also his eyes on the sidelines, being able to see what's going on when Jameis comes to the sidelines. And
it's like having Breeze there.
It is. It's like having another. He's such a veteran. It's like having another coach right there on the sidelines. Yeah. All right, Juan Kincaid, sports director at Fox 8 Sports, is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We're here from our underwriters. We come back. We jump to the collegiate game, LSU Tulane. If we have some time, we'll jump into Pels as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Joining us today on the program, Juan Kincaid, sports director over at Fox 8 Sports. Juan, let's talk LSU. Okay. Losers to Florida State, 24-23 in the Dome on Sunday. First of all, what I don't understand is LSU fan, number one. I think they lost track of again, or have amnesia about where this program was. 39 scholarship players when Kelly took over. Late in terms of the transfer portal, late in terms of the recruiting class, and I thought he did a pretty good job in salvaging it. Now 2023 looks like he's gonna knock it out the park. But they don't have enough scholarship players, and they don't even have the limit right this year. So we knew that it may be a little bit of a struggle. Now, with that said, I thought they beat Florida State. I really did. I thought they would beat them. I didn't think Florida State, I thought, in a lot of cases, were helped by having the game before playing Duquesne. I think they got some of that kinks out. But again, LSU fans that are just fire Kelly, the team, dumping on the team. I just don't understand that, considering, again, where they were and where they are now.
I call this the Nick Saban effect.
Okay.
When they won the national championship, ever since that point,
Right.
so long ago,
Yes.
LSU fans think you should win the championship every year. And it's okay to have that hope and belief in
of
everything.
course.
But you have to be realistic about what this football team is right now. Brian Kelly comes in here. He's got a depleted roster.
Yes.
He's having to recruit late, as you mentioned. I thought they played, for the most part, pretty well, all things considered. But you have an offensive line that's 5 left tackles, former left tackles. You got a center that's playing center for the first time in a collegiate game. I mean, there's going to be some growing pains.
Yeah.
There's going to be, no matter what you say. You've got talent on this football team. You still had a chance to beat Florida State. I'm reading these, and I don't know why I go through it. I'm reading these Twitter feeds, and everything's like, Jaden Daniels is not the guy. I'm like, dude, he just led you down the field in less than a minute with a touchdown.
It's crazy.
It's either feast or famine for LSU fans, and it drives me crazy sometimes. I don't know why it does. I should just not let it, but they just have to be realistic about where their football team is right now.
26 when he he threw for 209 yards. He had no interceptions. He had 2 touchdowns. He was 16 carries for 114 yards.
Leading rusher.
Okay, leading rusher. I thought he was impatient early, but again, I thought he felt the rush. But I thought, when he settled down and started to run, but looking downfield to throw the football, I think that's when you saw LSU kind of come together. Also, again, the tempo.
They changed the tempo.
They've got to go high tempo for this to work for them.
But you know what, Eric? You mentioned something a minute ago that Florida State had the advantage of playing a game before. Yes. That's what LSU would have found out if they had played a game before. About what tempo works best for this quarterback. They want to say Daniels or Nussmeier. Well, based on the offensive line that you're playing with, Daniels has to be your guy because the offensive line is not going to hold up. Nussmeier can move around in the pocket, but he's not a takeoff and run guy like Daniels is. You have to have a quarterback like Daniels in there right now because of the offensive line is going to break down. You got freshmen and transfers on that line. It's going to break down. So you have to have a quarterback that can get out of the pocket, get down the field, make positive plays out of negative situations. Daniels is that guy. And no, he wasn't perfect the whole game, but if they score a touchdown on that first drive, maybe the situation has changed. That was a really good first drive.
Yes, it was.
Running the ball with his legs, handing off the running backs, throwing it down the field. You had everything you wanted to see in that drive, except the bad snap by the center, who's never played center before. So if I'm an LSU fan, I'm thinking, okay, this was a good first drive. This is what I want to see from this football team. But I also don't buy the fact that if they had another game, they'd have beaten Florida State. I don't buy that. You still got to play each individual game as an individual game.
They would have got a lot of the kinks out, and especially for a team that you had so much turnover. And I thought they look. I saw it too. Play a cupcake. Don't play a big opponent. Even though Florida State is kind of middle of the road in the ACC right now. I would think that again that if they would have had a game under their belt, that they probably would have got a lot of those kinks out. With that said, look, you got to be able to get the ball to the wide receivers on this team. Well, they've got
to get open too, and then your main guy, Keishawn Boutte, has to play better.
Yeah, he cannot. It was very disappointing.
His body language, Eric, was awful.
It was.
And for the guy wearing number 7, who's been hyped up so much, and we know how good he is, he has to show up to play. While we want to sit here and blame the quarterback for this, that, and the other, the offensive line, when the ball's thrown your way, Keishawn Boutte, you got to make a play. You have to make a play. Dre Jenkins was fantastic in that game. He made plays. Keishawn Boutte has to be the guy because they're hyping him up as the guy. You're wearing the number 7. You are the guy. Play like the guy. And don't sit here and have a bad attitude while you're playing. All of a sudden the sky is falling. Brush it off. Come back and play the next series. And I was disappointed in his performance.
He looked uninterested at times. I mean,
he did.
And you can't have that.
Which is really surprising.
No, because again, look, first of all, everybody said, well, he's going to transfer. He can't transfer, okay? I guess he could, but he have to sit out. He's going to the NFL. He can opt out and maybe sit out and do like Jamar Chase did. But I think he needs this year, okay?
Well, he does, especially after that first performance. Because NFL teams are going to watch that tape and say, well, when the going gets tough.
Plus, he's been coming off injuries, okay? So, again, yes, he may be one of the best receivers in America, but you still got to prove it. And again, And you don't want that tone being set in your locker room either.
Exactly.
You know, again, especially from a guy that's wearing number 7, right?
Yeah.
So that was very disappointing. I am questioning the running game a little bit. You know, I like Noah Kane. He's a physical back.
Yeah.
They got to get John Henry back. I thought the offense at times was vanilla. I think they got to be more imaginative, especially again with a quarterback like Daniels, who has the ability to be able to move and to be able, again, with him rolling out and being a threat to run. Receivers are going to get some open spaces to be able to work in, because defenses are going to have to look toward the end of the game. That defense had to keep looking to see where he was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that helped getting open. Of course, they played a lot of prevent on that last drive, but you know it is what it is. But offensively, they've got weapons at the wide receiver position, and again, the criticism of Daniel to me is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but I do think one of the big questions mark for LSU coming in this year was not just the offensive line; it was the guys running behind that offensive line. John Emery's your main guy,
right?
And he has not blown them away since he's been at LSU, which seems like 7 years now. He's been there a long time. He's not blown them away. This was, to me, was supposed to be his year to own that position.
Yes.
Thrive in that position, make an NFL opportunity for himself in that position. And we haven't seen it yet because of the suspension, because of academic reasons. In another game from now, once you get past the Southern game, he should be back on the field. He becomes that number 1 back again, we assume.
Yes.
I thought Noah Kane did a pretty good job, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to run away from him.
He's not a game breaker.
He's not. He's a pound it, give him 2-3 yards, first down, that's fine.
Yes.
You know, it's almost like Kamara and Ingram.
Right, I agree.
So we'll see what John Emery does, but he needs to have a big game big games when he comes back for this offense to thrive.
I thought, was it Taylor, the tight end?
Yeah.
Played really well for him.
Yeah.
Smart move down the end.
He's young, yeah.
You know, again, and he's got real potential there. Big loss with Mason Smith on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's just huge.
It really is.
I mean, you're talking about a guy
and how it happened.
He's so disruptive.
Yeah.
And that's you know, where are you going to get that now?
Yeah.
Now, they got some players there. You know, again, look, that's to me is the strength of the defense. But again, you lose a really good player like that early.
Yeah, I felt like that defensive front was built around Mason Smith.
Me too.
I mean, he's your star player in there, and I mean, he's a fantastic player. He's a guy that commands double teams all the time.
All the time.
And he's just so good. And so it's hard. It's going to be hard to replace that.
Right.
But again, the whole next man up theme is real now for LSU.
Yes.
And that it may take 2 guys to do what Mason Smith did as one, but that's what you got to have.
Right. Ali Gay, really
stupid move.
Stupid. And again, look, especially when Mason Smith goes out, you gotta be on that field, okay? Because you're the next guy. You're the guy that's going to be he's probably the second most disruptive player on that defensive line. The linebackers, I expected more. I mean, Penn played pretty well. You know, Perkins had that penalty on special teams. I'm hoping that we're going to see again an evolution there, because they're going to need that second level. And the secondary, I don't know how you feel about it. I thought they were. It was sometimes they looked good, sometimes they looked overwhelmed.
Well, I thought for the most part in the whole game they looked overwhelmed, the entire defense, because 11 of 17 on third down conversions, you can't have that.
No.
They cannot
get off the field.
Cannot be almost 60% on third down conversions, and that's in a defensive effort there. That's the linebackers not picking up and not playing. Well, that's the secondary guys, the cornerbacks not doing their job. There's the best thing about this Florida State game is that it's the first game.
Yes.
And there's only one way to go, and that's up from here. But you've got to see growth on every level on both sides of the ball. And I'm a believer in Brian Kelly. I think he's a really good football coach. I think he's going to do a great job at LSU once he gets his players in there. But even with the players he has now, Eric, this team is good enough to win 7-8 games. Some luck's got to go their way. I didn't pick them to win. I didn't pick them to beat Florida State. I didn't pick them to have a winning record this year. But I think that if things go their way, they can have a winning record and get to a bowl game.
I think I picked them to win 8 games. I thought they could win 8 games.
I had trouble finding 8.
You know,
I really did.
Now they got to pick one up in the SEC now with losing this Florida State game.
And the SEC is surprised after one game, surprisingly strong.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's winning football games, some against cupcake teams, but I think it's going to be tough.
Special teams really let them down. I mean, again, you know, first of all, you know, again, I don't know if it was, I said this on the radio show, I don't know if it was the Superdome lights for neighbors, look it up, you know, not being able to practice in that environment, or again, he's just not a punt returner, but you got to secure the football. That's the first thing.
Well, based on what Brian Kelly told us back on Monday of last week, what their schedule would be, on Tuesday of last week, what their schedule would be, they did get into the Superdome and do a practice.
Okay.
So I can't use that as an excuse. I just think when you get into the game that things, you know, sped up a bit. Sped up, there's pressure. Lights are on, cameras are on, and you got to make a play. And I just thought he struggled, and it happens. And I'm all for Brian Kelly for his reasoning on why he put him back in there again. He's like, because I believe in him. I didn't want to think I just all of a sudden lost belief. Yeah, you got to. You can't just close the door on a play just because he makes a mistake.
And I'd play him this week again. I would give him another chance against Southern this week. To see again how you don't want to kill the guy's confidence at that point. Give him a shot. If it doesn't work, go with a hands guy. Get other guys that can do that. I agree. Missing the extra point, blocked the blocked extra point, missing the kick. You look at just special teams. Overall, they really didn't play well. And look, that's an area where you thought. First of all, place kicking was never been anything you had to worry about for the last 8 years, right? Yeah. Now, again, this is an issue. So, again, hopefully they can clean that up.
Well, it's not that, and get this, Eric, and I didn't realize this, and I was talking to our people that cover the game.
Right.
So Brian Kelly made an adjustment at that left side of the line after the first block kick.
Right.
Changed out something there, thought they corrected it, and you had the same problem again the second time. So this is to me, that's coaching. You've got to have the right players in the right position. Right. We didn't have to deal with this issue for the last 10 years because you had guys in there making every kick.
Right.
But also you had an offensive line, especially on the edges, blocking. Deuce and I were sitting there watching the replay. He goes, you can see the problem here. Guys aren't interlocked together.
Yes.
And so when the ball snapped, he's supposed to step here and let the guy go on the outside. Instead, the guy goes here.
Right.
And so even Deuce is pointing out, that's coaching.
Yeah.
They're not being coached the right way on that one.
It's a foundation year, though, Juan, for this team. Again,
it is.
And again, if everybody forgets, again, Nick Saban had a foundation year as well. And
Joe Burrow wasn't great in this first game at LSU.
No, he
either.
wasn't.
He was terrible.
That's right.
He had worse numbers than Jane Daniels.
Right. I do expect to see Nussmeier this week against Southern.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think you should.
Yep.
I'm going to be honest with you. There was a time in that game when Daniels was running the football a lot, wasn't patient in the passing game, where I was thinking, you know what, maybe again you put Nussmeier in for a series and see how he does. And then again, I don't know if it was a turnover, what happened, that there was a switch that went off, and then from that point on, he was just, again, he was throwing the ball well. Only criticism I have is he's not a guy that throws guys open. He throws the ball a little bit late.
Yeah.
I wonder how that's going to work in the SEC, but you got to give the guy a tremendous amount of credit. He carried this team against Florida State.
And I would say that the one thing when the light went on is because the offensive tempo changed.
Yes.
They realized after a half, we got to get things going, speed things up a little bit, and that's what helped him get into more of a rhythm.
I agree. Let's go to the Tulane Green Wave. They are undefeated with a 42-10 win over UMass. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, everything you wanted to see from Tulane, you saw. You saw Michael Pratt being good in the pocket, throwing 2 touchdowns, running for one himself. You saw an offensive line that held up and did pretty well against a team. Listen, let's not make UMass out to be world beaters here. They are who they are. They struggled last season with stopping anybody. Exactly. And so I don't know if we're expecting more from them this year. But Tulane won a game they're supposed to win.
Yes.
And listen, to get to where they want to get to, which is back into a bowl game, you got to take care of those games first. You got another one this weekend against Alcorn State. It should be a game that you take care of and that you win. Michael Pratt looked good. Tajay Spears he's as good a running back. Like if he was at LSU, there would be no running back problems at LSU.
No,
he is as good a running back as there is in the country. He is so good. Strong, elusive, speedy. But that's one thing that Willie Fritz has done a really good job there. He has kept that running back room stacked and stocked since he's been there.
I agree. I like the growth of Pratt, what we saw.
Yeah.
Again, getting down, not challenging again with the runner, even though he is a great runner. Okay. 16 for 20, 164, 2 touchdowns, 7 runs, 55 yards, and a touchdown. You can see I think you see the maturity in him, from last year to this year, which really bodes well. I was really impressed with Lawrence Keys, McDougal. I agree with you about Spears. I think he's going to be playing. I think he's the best player on the team, honestly.
I agree.
And I think he's going to be playing on Sunday. But again, the burst of Keys. Jackson is an underrated player on that team. Not just a guy. A lot of people think he's just a punt returner.
Yeah.
When he gets a chance to be able to catch the football on offense, he is a game breaker.
Yeah.
So again, at the skill positions, you look at up and down. James is one of the best tight ends in the country. you didn't even hear from him on Saturday. It was Wallace that was the guy that was getting a lot of the balls, but I think he's a guy that's got a chance to play in the NFL. They are set at the skill positions on this team, as good as they've been in a long, long time across the board.
I feel like that's where they've had to get better at the skill position, especially the wide receiver position, because I feel like they've always had the running backs, and Michael Pratt's gotten better as a quarterback.
Wyatt, McDougal, you go right down the line.
But the receiver-wise, they've gotten better there, and I think that's where the upgrade had to come for Tulane this year, because it seemed to get a bit stagnant. Like they became too one-dimensional. They couldn't throw the ball down the field, and they've gotten better there. And the credit to Willie Fritz for addressing that need during the offseason and with the transfer portal, or even with recruiting. So they've done better there. But on the Michael Pratt situation, listen, I'm not going to give this kid praise because he blew out UMass. I want to see if he can do this same thing when he goes on the road at Kansas State, a better football team. That's where I got to see the growth, Eric. I don't care about UMass and Alcorn State and even Southern Miss because they blew them out last year. I want to see what he does against K-State. That will tell me if there's been growth in his game. Win or lose, I want to see him be the leader of this football team and perform well and have good balance then. That's going to tell me more about him than these games they play against Alcorn State and UMass.
It's going to come down to the offensive line. Okay.
Of course it is. I mean, again, and him making good decisions and hitting guys when they're open. Of course
I agree with that. I mean, but I would agree about getting open and the decision making. But I think he's matured there. But again, a lot of times he was under duress. And because of the offensive line. On paper, the offensive line looks so much better, and they looked really good against UMass. But again, we got to say it was UMass. I want to see, again, the continued growth. Much like, again, we talked about LSU week-to-week growth. I want to see continued growth there. Because, again, if Tulane is going to advance and going to be a team that's going to be in a bowl game this year, it's going to be in the trenches. Now, they lost Freelo on the defensive side of the ball. That's really going to hurt them because he was one of the better players on defense. But, again, it comes down to the offensive defensive lines. How much better have they gotten in the offseason to be able to prepare for this upcoming season?
Well, you know, it's funny. People always say, well, we got 6, 7 players back on the offensive line just in general. And I'm like, well, how good was the offensive line last year? Having guys back is great, but if they weren't very good last year and they haven't been coached up and gotten better in the offseason, it's still a bad offensive line. So, again, UMass, Alcorn State, you should be able to dominate those teams. And the offensive line is going to look great. He's going to be protected. But when you play someone that looks like you, just bigger than you in Kansas State, that may be just as fast or faster than you, has more offensive weapons and you have defensive talent and vice versa, then what can you do then? Show me that there's growth in the program then. For me, those are the real test moments for Willie Fritz and his football team.
I like Swoboda with his offense so far. The little peak that we got. You know, anytime you can get in a situation where again, you're spreading the ball around, you got a guy like Spears. They got some depth in that offensive backfield. Defensively, the linebackers again look like they're going to be really good. We'll see again how the secondary plays out again, but Willie Fritz seems to again have faith there, and of course with Tulane, it's always a crapshoot with the kicking game.
They seem to have gotten themselves a guy that can do it. I mean, Willie said, just make the easy ones, extra points within 40 yards. Make the easy ones. That's been the problem with Tulane for so many years. They can't get consistent special teams play. Think about the games they could have won.
Oh, come on. Left on the field? Well, they were 6 for 6 with extra points this past weekend. Here's another stat. They did not punt. They didn't have one punt. So that tells you a little bit about, again, how well they
So we don't know how good the punt team is yet.
No, we don't. That's true. That's true. But again, they got weapons with Keys and Jackson in terms of the returners as well. I'm really hyped to watch Keys play for this team because he was at Notre Dame, didn't work out, but you could see the burst on this kid. Okay, he's talented, and I think you put him in the AAC, I think he can dominate.
And I think he comes back here thinking, you know what, I played in big boy football, now I'm back at this level, I should be able to dominate. He has to have that kind of attitude, and he needs to be that kind of difference maker. His mom texts me all the time saying, watch my boy. So we're now watching. And what can he do in Tulane Green? We shall see.
I'm looking forward to being able to see him grow here because, the one thing that we were talking about before the show, and you mentioned it. You said that Willie Fritz doesn't really, again, recruit Louisiana great.
Not as well as he needs to.
Not as well as he should. But he did do well in the transfer portal for these guys that want to come back home after leaving a university maybe it didn't work out. And maybe that's an avenue for them. But maybe also the fact that these kids may excel coming out of the transfer portal, maybe some of these kids will now, instead of looking at ULL or Southeastern, Akron, some of the other schools, they might start looking at Tulane.
I feel like that for Tulane to be successful, they have to win that recruiting war with the schools that are similar in size as you are.
Yes.
You know, the ULFS, the UL Monroes, even the Southeasterns are getting players back in.
Well, LSU can't take all of them, and neither can again, a lot of the other
But
teams.
LSU's not trying to go after all the players in Louisiana. They're going after a select handful of players in Louisiana.
5 stars,
top players, exactly, 4 stars. And then there's a pool of players there. They're there for the taking for Tulane. Obviously, got to get them in academically. But I do agree with you that the avenue of guys coming back home, you know, top Division I players coming back home, they want to play Division I ball. Those are the players that Tulane should be going after and should be getting almost every time. That's where their focus should be. But I do believe he has to get better. Right. And I think Willie would tell you he has to get better at recruiting the local recruiting base here, because that's where your base is.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of good football players here that need to stay home.
I'm with you.
And let me ask you a quick question.
Go ahead.
Does Tulane start 4-0? They should win 3 of their first 4 games. Can they win at Kansas State? In the office, I'm like, I think they can.
You know, I think they can. I think the question is, again, in the trenches. Can they physically match up against a team from a bigger conference? And that's look, I think offensive skill position, I think they match up. I think when you look, again, linebackers, you know, so part of the second, I think they match up. Defense, offensive lines, can they match up there?
Exactly.
I think that's where the rubber hits the road with them.
I agree.
You know? If they could do that, they can start up 4-0, which would be great for Willie Fritz coming off again a 2-win season. All right, just a few minutes left in the show. Want to talk about the Pels. Can't let it go.
Sure.
Zion coming back now to this team again with everything they have. Your thoughts on what's the ceiling on this team this year?
Gosh, I don't know, because we haven't been in this position before. I think if you go based on how they finished last year, and with how they finished with what they had last year, I think you're talking second round playoffs. At the minimum, 55, 60-win season at the minimum, because there's so much talent. The Western Conference is not as strong as it once was. Maybe the dominating conference is now the Eastern Conference. If Zion stays healthy, him with Brandon Ingram and C.J. McCollum and Valanciunas, I mean, this is a good basketball team.
Is.
I think you measure how good this team is based on how deep their bench is. They had 14 contracted players when they went into the offseason. They couldn't even sign both their draft picks. They couldn't. So they had one spot open. That tells you how deep this team is. And not just deep with bodies, they're deep and talented. I mean, I think this is a really good basketball team. I mean, we talk about how deep the Saints are and how they're just a complete team. That's where the Pelicans are. Now, is the moment going to be too big for them because they haven't been down this road before? That's what's going to be the telling
that only
part.
happens in the NBA. You got to take that. It's a step-by-step deal.
You know, it's a number of things. It's playing back-to-backs. It's playing 3 games in 5 days. It's a number of factors as well.
But the depth will help them there. If they can stay
the depth will help them. It will help them.
And again, Willie Green has done a great job. There's a buy-in there.
He is.
There's a buy-in, and of course, if Zion is healthy, he brings another dimension to this team that they didn't have last year. And the physicality inside, and of course, a lot of open shots as well.
Well, I hope that he has spent a lot of his offseason working on his jump shot. That elbow jumper. At the 15-footer. If he gets that, he will be unstoppable. Because then no longer can teams say, you know what, we're going to back and cover it by the paint and make you beat us from 15 feet. If he can hit that down consistently, I don't need him to be a 3-point shooter. Knock it down every now and then. I have no problem with that.
You want him
I want him 15 feet and in. And if he can develop that, it opens up so much more for everybody else and become a better passer.
And defending. He's got to be a better defender. Team defender,
I think that will come.
Individual defender. Okay, because especially off the ball, he should be able to, again, be a great shot blocker as well. You know, because again, you've got some big guys like Valanciunas. I'm excited about the season. Again, October 19th, they open up against Brooklyn, and I really think that, especially if they get off to a fast start, which they haven't done in a long time, they're going to have a chance to contend, not just again in the division, but again in the conference.
I think the West has just changed so much. Utah is a shell of who they used to be.
The Lakers are searching.
Lakers are searching. I mean, the Clippers are probably the best. The Clippers are definitely the best team in LA. I mean, Dallas Mavericks will be a good team, but I don't think they're better than the Pelicans.
They went through a transition too.
I think Memphis is going to be really good again.
I agree.
I just think that the teams we haven't talked about much in the past, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, I mean, maybe the Nuggets, those teams are rising up where the traditional powers are coming down.
Yep, no doubt. Juan, thanks so much as always.
My pleasure.
Juan Kincaid, sports director over at Fox 8. Remember, 10:30, 10:35 every single weekday. Got a new show over at Fox 8. Check that out. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a lot of rebroadcasts of our program. So many ways to catch our show. There's a QR code up on the screen right now. Use your phone. It'll take you right to my website or the WLAE-TV YouTube page. And, of course, you can check out all the rebroadcasts of our program throughout the weekend. Also, again, don't forget, catch me on the radio, 106.1 on 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. The Anchor app is where our podcasts are. Also, again, an iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app is where you can catch the program also on our digital platforms. I want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible, each and every one of them. We appreciate them. And also, again, the WLA production staff, again, do a great job in producing our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Raffia, Alex Chacon, and, of course, my director, William Hill. For Juan Kincaid, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.